So when you keep saying when it's not in use, then one uses this only at certain moments of the day or night.
No, I didn't mean to convey this. I just meant to say that naturally, while in use, it would possibly be in many parts of the house over a specific period of time, but that while it was not in use, you'd have a great deal of discretion. That's what I said.
Oh, that's very clear, yes. Well, now, does that mean that this will be useful to you in any room of the house if you had a certain job to do in that room?
Well, I would say, if Mr. Barron will permit, that if you had a specific job in mind to which this particular product might well be applied, that it would be very useful if you had it in the room where the job was being done. Yes.
Well, if you did this job in the room where the job was being done and then stopped doing the job and then folded it up, would the room look any different?
Well, the room would change character to some degree because of the, shall we say, deployment of individuals, etc., but not necessarily the room itself would not look different.
Is there a kind of instruction involved in what you do?
There is instruction to the degree only that they might, for their own purposes, require of individuals that they follow certain courses of action.
What did he say?
Miss Redfield, would you say that your services were more mental than physical?
Here, high under the sports arena roof, I would say this so that we don't mislead you, that as is true with a great many occupations, certainly a quotient of physical activity is necessary to the performance of the service which is involved, but that the origination of the physical activity has, shall we say, a mental base.
Good heavens. You sound like that gentleman from Mississippi, John.
Thank you, John.
What did he say?
He clarified. Would you say that it was a luxury rather than an absolute necessity of subsistence?
No, I wouldn't say it was a luxury.
Well, with your permission, I would say that under normal circumstances in this country, you would consider that it perhaps would be a luxury for the normal family in its normal mode of life. It has, however, as a basic characteristic, a utilitarian character which could make it under other circumstances extremely necessary.
Isn't that beautiful? Does that mean yes or no, John?
That means both.
Have you got anything at all to do with any of the arts?
No.
Are you related?
Here again, I must say, to clarify, that directly our guests do not have anything to do with the arts, but this is not to rule out that the arts do not come within the purview of their responsibilities in the functions which they carry out in the due course of every day's work.
Would it be more likely for a woman to have to do with this particular product than a man? Yes, I think so.
Well, now, wait a minute here. Wait a minute here. Small conference. Dorothy, you raised a very difficult point here. I don't think that the relationship between the product and either male or female of the species can be described as being preponderantly with one than the other. You know, but I will admit that at one stage the interest of one might be greater than the other, whereas at another stage the interest of the other might be greater than the one, you see.
Could I please have another question?
Yeah.
If I came to you and availed myself of your services, would you make my stay at a particular hotel more enjoyable or more pleasant?
I think so.
The end result which you would seek would of necessity make the service which would be available to you at Miss Traylor's hands one which you would consider a service that gave you enjoyment, although it would not necessarily have to do solely with, you know, the visual arts or something like that.
I forgot what I asked.
I'm not quite sure because the answer was so involved, John. But what I'm not quite sure of is Miss Traylor involved in seeing that the clientele is happier and has a more pleasant time at the hotel.
No,
Was
what
that
we
the
meant
answer?
to convey in the answer was that the recipient of the service who had sought it would certainly enjoy the fact of the service as an individual experience, but this does not necessarily suggest that Miss Traylor has the responsibility, for instance, of amusing the vast numbers of people.
I should have left it where it was. Would it be seen by anybody that I might be talking to if I was wearing it? Would they be aware of it? I mean, would they know I had it on?
Well, I would say that certainly we would agree that it would be seen. As to whether or not they would be instantly or immediately aware that you had it on would depend on the degree of attention which they focused to that particular part of you upon which it was being worn.
Is there any research attached to your job, Mr. Johnson?
No, there is not.
Well, now, with your permission, I would say it would not be unreasonable that one holding Mr. Johnson's particular place in life would be interested in the area of research and might, under certain circumstances, feel the desire or need to indulge in it. Would you say that's fair?
That is fair, yes.
So you may continue.
It may be fair for Mr. Johnson, but it's not fair for me. Is it a personal kind of job? By that I mean, do you deal directly with someone to whom you are very personally responsible, as opposed to a girl that sells in a shop, or a girl that directs traffic, or a girl that does a job that might deal with a great many people?
Well, I think we'd have
Are you
to say-
personally responsible to somebody?
Well, yes.
Some one person.
She would have an employer or a representative of an employer to whom she would be directly responsible. I would say also that she has and recognizes an obligation and a responsibility to others who would be necessarily those with whom she would come most in contact in doing her work.
That's glory. You have a direct relationship with the new First Lady?
No.
That would be... Now, here again, with your permission, in the terms of referenceship of the relationships that are possible as a part of the responsibility which must be carried by Miss Means, it is certainly within the purview of reason to consider that a relationship which we could describe as direct would obtain at some time or another between Miss Means and the new First Lady.
What I cannot understand is why a man with your diplomatic approach is not in this sort of a job. You'd be glorious in the White House. Well, then I may pursue this just one question further.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have direct contact with our president, President Kennedy?
Here again, if I may intercede.
You're doing beautifully.
What we're saying here, Miss Arlene, is in the area of responsibility which is properly Miss Means, it is possible that a direct relationship with the First Lady or the President might occur.
Well, Mrs. Kelly, do most people who employ your services or enjoy your services go away better for them?
Well, I think we have to take into account here the end which those who seek Miss Kelly's service would ultimately achieve.
That's what I was
taking into
taking
account. To the degree
into
that Miss Kelly performs her service efficiently, I think we could agree that when they've had her service, they go away feeling better for having had it. In other words, they'd be unhappy if they hadn't had it.
Has it been established that you work indoors?
Yes.
Do people come to you?
Yes.
Well, let's say in a manner of speaking, we would have to agree that to get the service, it's necessary for individuals to take some initiative to get it. This does not necessarily require that they come to, the specific location. It's possible they could get the service perhaps through an intermediary or something.
Special kind of people come to you for your service? Are they in a special situation that requires their knowing what you teach? to what I believe.
Well, this is a rough one, you know. Actually, if they have an intention to enter into an area in which they have not previously entered and need to have some basic knowledge of that area, they would, in that degree, come for special information.
Exactly what I mean.
Do people come to you for your service?
Yes.
Do you work
Well,
indoors?
let me say here that what we would mean to convey by that affirmative answer is that some affirmative action by the individual who wishes to make use of the service is necessary, although the physical transportation to the immediate vicinity of Miss Arnold might not necessarily be required.
Sure, baby.
Is it more decorative than practical?
It's... Oh, no.
Am I in trouble again, John?
You're giving me, a dreadful time here. It's
You want me to be less brilliant, John? I'll be less brilliant.
It has practical applications that are overriding, and to the degree that it might be decorative, this would be only incidental to the practicalities which were involved in the gathering into and of the product. That's what $2.80 ago, Mr.
When you said we were accepting communication in its broader sense, you meant not necessarily a form of transportation?
What I meant was that it would include transportation, radio, telephone, telegraph, every means of communication, the transfer of a body physically from one locus to another, a communication of a message through some means of transmission, etc., etc.
Is it a product that I might go to a store to buy?
Yes.
Is it a product that might be used in my
Let
home?
me say here that it's a product that you might go to a store to buy at some stage in the normal development of the distribution of the product in its more useful forms to the general public.
John, could I have my old answer back?
If I bought this product at a store, could I carry it out by myself?
Well, now, Dorothy, one thing I want to stress here is that we have given the latitude that the product in its more useful forms might be available in a store. But in the specifics of the product, as our guests are concerned with it, it would be difficult to answer the question, that as you pose it, except that you always keep in mind that at some stage in the game, when it's more readily available, yes.
I'd like Arlene's old answer back.
Want to hear my German? It's very good.
Would it ever be found indoors in a house? Yes.
Indoors in the house or
in a house?
In a house.
Would it be found in a house?
Well, with your permission, ladies, I want to be very fair. There are circumstances under which our guests can affirmatively say that they have had relationships that in the general development of their business where the animal would be in the house. This is not to suggest that it would, in all cases, be in the house.
Does it have anything to do with bonds?
Well, again, there is a circumstance under which we would have to admit that it's possible that the two might be in a position to convey or be an instrument of conveyance in which the instrument to be conveyed was a bond, yes.
Well, John, how about that?
Does what you do in the way of service take less than an hour?
Sometimes.
Now, to beat an old cliche to death and to go back to your previous question, no man is an island. I trust that the question that you asked previously understands that all of us tend to have the cooperation of our fellows in almost any action which we take. This is not suggesting that in giving you the affirmative answer to the question next precedent to the one you just asked, that our guest works entirely alone. There are other people involved generally in what is going on.
May we have the next guest?
It is not likely to be stationary. It is more likely to be moved around.
That is right.
May I assume that it does not move around by itself, of its own volition?
You want to go snipe hunting with me? Dorothy, what do you think on this? We're going to have another meeting. Well, let me put it this way. I would, on technicalities, tend to say that the answer should be no. Mr. Oates said that I think we would possibly mislead them if we did not say yes to this. Now, this should indicate to you that what we're suggesting here in the issue of whether it moves around on its own volition or not is being decided fundamentally in a most modern sense.
John, if I may interrupt, in all respect, the gap between the question and the answer is so long that my defective concentration, does it move by itself or not?
Well, in the most modern, we're answering the question affirmatively, but in the context of modern technology, let's put it that way.
Eaten, drinking, drunk, or used up.
Small conference. Bennett, Mr. Ellswood wants to be very fair here. We would have to agree that since it is made of matter, that there is a point at which it changes its character and to that degree has been used up in the terms of the original function for which it was sold. Now, if that's what you had in mind when you asked the question, and I'm sure that you will bring your massive integrity to answering this particular question of mine.
Absolutely what
if that's what you had in mind,
so help me.
You did. Then we'll please continue your question.